Yo, what's cracking, folks? Welcome to episode number 13 of The Painter and the Pixie. I'm your host, Jeremy Vassar, and this week's a little bit different because Serina is out of town. She's actually out of town for the next 2 weeks, so I have 2 episodes for you guys planned with a guest host, and that guest host is my brother Josh, who has been my business partner for the last 14 years, I think, and I've worked with him for a super long time. He's a good dude. And in this episode, we're actually going to be talking about how to pick paint colors. Josh and I have owned and operated our own painting contracting business for the last 12 or 13 years. And it's a process that we've walked hundreds and hundreds of clients through, and can be a major sticking point for a lot of folks. So we decided to be a good resource for our clients to have, and another thing for people to pass around on the interwebs. So, without further ado, please enjoy episode number 13 of The Painter and the Pixie.
This is only the beginning.
All right, ready?
Ready?
What you're going to hear about today is nothing short of a miracle.
Well, I don't believe it.
Let's find out. Ready, set, go.
Yo, what's up, brother? How you doing?
Hey, okay. How are you?
I'm doing well, dude. Just hanging out, ready to talk about some paint colors.
Yes,
So-
we know way too much about this.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So this is going to be a little bit of a targeted podcast, and this will kind of be a standalone resource for our clients or anyone else that wants to have a little bit of help picking paint colors, which is something you and I deal with pretty consistently, and is a sticking point for many homeowners in the process of a renovation or any home project they're doing, is actually picking the color of the paint that they're going to be putting on the walls and trim and ceilings. So
It's one of the biggest things we have where we get to a job and they haven't picked all their colors yet. It holds us up the most.
yeah, and we've actually heard a few of other paint contractors being somewhat like prima donnas about like they won't even show up until the paint colors are picked. So I think there's
You might never start the job then.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we've had that. We kind of go. We try and be very friendly and go a little bit above and beyond as far as helping our clients, settle on the color they'll be the most comfortable with, because we've been doing this for like 13, 14 years now, and we've painted a lot of the colors under the rainbow, and have seen some things that worked out well and things that didn't work out as well. So, and we know a thing or two. So, I just wanted to mention that we understand that it's one of the most stressful experiences. Picking paint colors got rated as one of the most stressful retail experiences a couple years ago. The paint aisles in Lowe's and Home Depot were rated as like the highest instances of cardiac events. So people were actually having heart attacks right in front of that big paint wall with all the
Whoa.
chips. So it was the most. They rated it as one of the most stressful experiences in retail, because people were like basically dropping dead in those paint aisles between like actually picking sheens of paint and like actually the colors of them. So
Well, that's why we're here, to take the stress out.
Yep, we're trying to alleviate some unnecessary suffering here.
Yes.
So, the first thing I wanted to mention, Josh and I are going to talk mainly about picking interior colors, but I thought we'd touch on exterior work for a minute before we got into the nitty gritty of interior painting. So I really like, for exterior colors, the historical line from Benjamin Moore, and their affinity line is an extension of their historical line. So I would, Josh and I kind of both agree on this, is to go a little bit more conservative on the exterior colors of your house. Go a little bit more, if you don't like the word conservative, like classic, something that's a little more timeless. So particularly if you are in a neighborhood, you kind of want to look around and see what your neighbors have done with their shutters and their doors, and if you have painted siding, kind of what that looks like, because you kind of want to be a good neighbor and blend in a little bit with your respective surroundings. Do you have anything to add on that one, Josh?
Yeah, for exterior, you don't want to go with what's in style now, because if you're going to sell your house in, say, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, you want it to hold up. And it's real easy to change an interior of a room, but an exterior of your house, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, that's a super good point because if you exterior paint jobs are also really expensive.
Yes.
Particularly if you've painted stucco or whatever it is. So, we were just in a neighborhood I think last week where the neighbors of the house we were working at, they painted their doors and shutters like, I think the doors were an ultra bright neon green, and then the shutters were kind of this neon blue. They reminded me like the highlighter colors
Yes.
from school back in the day. And it was,
And they're all different. They would alternate.
yeah, they alternated, and this was a very kind of normal looking neighborhood. Nobody else had anything close to that, and it definitely made a statement. And the statement was, no one in this neighborhood likes me. So, and that's what the homeowner we were painting for was like, yeah, no one likes that house. So, and then you can kind of just go with standard whites for most of the trim on the exterior. Usually for like Sherwin-Williams, it's like extra white is the most common white that we use, both interior and exterior. That's just like their untinted white. So you don't need to kind of get too stressed out about.
Yeah, and for trim, usually doors and shutters are painted the same. So usually we like looking around the neighborhood. So usually doors are either black or red. Shutters, a lot of times will match it. Well, they'll be black, red. I mean, you can do some other different shutter colors. And for shutters, it's better to have like if you're doing the plastic ones, just get them already that color. You'll get like the standard black because sun really beats those things up.
Yep.
And will fade the paint. You have to repaint them every couple of years.
Yep. Yeah, because usually that vinyl, they usually just get lit up with the sun.
Yep.
So, yeah, so that's kind of our little tidbits on exterior painting. So we're going to kind of get into the nitty gritty of interior painting, which is Josh and mine's our bread and butter. So I thought we would touch on paint sheens first, which is the actual kind of the amount of sheen that's in each product, and
sheen equals shininess. That's how I like to look at it.
Yeah,
I'm a simpleton, so I like the easy terms. Shininess.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So we'll give you each end of the spectrum. So a flat paint has no sheen to it. It's a dead flat. It doesn't reflect light. It pretty much absorbs light. That's what we use on most ceilings. And then all the way up to like a gloss or a high gloss has a ton of sheen in it, and that's like super, super shiny. So, first off, I want to pad this with saying different painters like using different products and different sheens for different applications, and kind of there's no I say there's some more correct ways to do things, but it's not just our way is not the only way to do it. So we acknowledge that. And if you have a painter that's working for you that's not following our particular formula, it doesn't mean he's doing a bad job or whatever. It's kind of teach his own. But there are some kind of guidelines or best practices and some things that this is just over the years. These are the kind of the products and the formulas that Josh and I have landed on to produce really, really good results. And our clients are very happy with the results almost all the time.
Yeah,
so.
And going to sheens, it's usually the flat where there's no sheen. It marks it really easily. So if you do your walls in flat and there's a little kid or a dog that brushes up against the wall, it'll mark up and you can't really wash it off. Where if you go to a semi-gloss or a gloss where there's tons of sheen, a lot of times we'll see in like a rental property, they'll do everything in semi-gloss, and where someone like a kid or a dog rubs up against the wall, it's not going to mark up. It flecks off water better. It's just more durable, but it doesn't look as good because it brings, if there's any imperfections in the wall, it really makes, you can see everything because it's just so shiny.
Right. And then with a flat paint, a flat hides the most imperfections. So, but it's the least durable. And then, like Josh just said, a semi-gloss or a gloss is going to be on the other end of the spectrum as far as it's going to show every imperfection because the way it reflects the light. But it is the most durable. So we kind of have certain rules for different areas of a house. But our typical loadout is for, we'll say it's like a bedroom or a foyer, basically any room that's not a bathroom that has a water element in it. So just a slight caveat here. A bathroom that has like a shower or a tub, anything where it's generating a lot of steam, we use a special product on the ceiling there, and I'll loop back around to that later. But in a typical bedroom, we use flats on the ceiling for the sheen. On the trim, we're using semi-gloss, and on the walls, we're using matte. And I will say that the products that we use specifically are, right now as of this recording, is all from Sherwin-Williams. It's the Promar ceiling paint, which is a dead flat white ceiling paint. For the walls, we use Duration matte, and then the trim, we use Duration semi-gloss. And you'll find, too, that the designations that they have for sheens are different within every product line from Benjamin Moore or Sherwin-Williams or Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever you're using. So with the Duration line, the matte has a little bit more sheen to it than a typical matte and some of the other products do. But we don't like, it goes with the Duration line, they have flat, matte, satin, and I think just jumps to semi-gloss.
Yes.
And their satin is a little too shiny for the walls, but the matte gives you some sheen, some protection. It has the moisture and mold block in it, and it holds up really well. So that's kind of what we use the majority of the time. I'd say like 98% of the jobs we use is this kind of standard loadout.
And their Duration matte in our eyes equals an eggshell paint and other, like in a Benjamin Moore, Home Depot, or Lowe's line of paint. So that's typically what you want on your walls, is like an eggshell, which is, like we said, Duration matte for Sherwin-Williams, which gives you a good amount of durability, but it's not so shiny you can see every imperfection in the wall.
Yeah, and we'll just because our clients will be likely listening to this. We don't use we don't use Lowe's or Home Depot products. It doesn't mean they're not good. Most of the paint we get is from Sherwin-Williams. We use some products from Benjamin Moore. But when it comes to picking colors, you can kind of go anywhere. And Sherwin-Williams has all of everybody's colors on file, or they can get them. So people have picked from Home Depot or Lowe's, and then we've taken those colors and put them into Sherwin-Williams paint. And it looks great because they have the actual color codes. And a lot of times we use Benjamin Moore colors in Sherwin-Williams paint, and that happens all the time as well. A lot of designers really like the Benjamin Moore color palette, so we end up using a lot of their colors, but most of the time we'll pump it into Sherwin-Williams product, usually a Duration. So that's just a little caveat there. And if you have hired us and we are painting in your house, we will not be using any Lowe's or Home Depot products. That'll be kind of our standard deal here. So yeah, like I said before, if we're doing a bathroom ceiling is going to have, we actually use Duration matte on the bathroom ceiling as well, if it has a shower in it or anything like that, because Duration has moisture and mold block in it, which means it's not going to crack out the way that you see, an older bathroom ceiling over time that's not properly ventilated. You'll see that paint actually fail. Because it's getting hit with moisture and getting soaked over and over again, and then the paint fails, and then it looks terrible. You can get mold, little black spots, and all that good stuff. I actually just did a quote yesterday where we'll be fixing someone's bathroom that has that exact issue. So, good times all around. So now we will... so one of the things Josh and I will generally coach our clients through is... unless you are an interior designer, have a very specific look you're going for, we recommend going with a standard white for the trim and the ceiling, because people can get really hung up on having to pick a color for the ceiling, the walls, and the trim. And when we say trim, we mean anything wood. So the baseboard, the door frames, the doors, windows, all that good stuff.
Crown molding, chair rail molding, wainscoting.
Any of that stuff. So my recommendation is to go with and I would say maybe 95% of the jobs that we do have this exact color, which is, it's from Sherwin-Williams. It's their untinted extra white, and it's called Extra White 7006. And we use that for the trim and the ceiling, and then kind of whatever you want on the walls. It gives it a really nice, it frames the walls really nicely, and it gives you a nice base to start with, and you don't have to worry about picking paint colors because it's such, you don't have to worry about picking paint colors for the trim and the ceiling because it goes with everything. It's a standard, like, straight white. There's no yellow tint to it. There's no blue tint to it. It just goes nicely with pretty much any color.
And the nice thing is if you pick a paint color on the walls and you have white ceiling, white trim, and then 5, 6, 10 years later you want to switch the wall color, you just have to switch the wall color. You don't have to repaint everything else unless you really want to.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's can be very handy because a lot of times the bulk of the time and money goes into painting the ceiling and the trim. A lot of times the walls are actually like the cheapest thing to paint or to repaint. We also recommend going with a like flat white or just a straight white inside of closets as well. A lot of people will take the wall color into the closet, but if you move or change the color of the room outside, a lot of times then you end up having to repaint the inside of the closet, which closets get filled with stuff. They're a huge pain in the butt. So if you go with a regular, even just the extra white or the ceiling white, it will do you a little better. Also, most closets are underlit, so the lighter the walls in there, the better it is for you to be able to see all the stuff that's actually in your
Makes
closet.
it look a little bigger.
Yeah, a little bigger. Okay, so let's just assume for the sake of this example that you've gone with extra white on the ceiling and the trim. So now we're down to wall colors, and I'll just say that it's a personal preference. So a common phrase in contracting is "I can't see it from my house." So it's we've painted so many different colors. We've painted crazy color schemes. We've done purple master suites. We've done
Just white?
Just
under white, straight white on the walls?
yeah, straight white. We've done all kinds of different pinks and purples and turquoise and everything. But most of the stuff we do, people are going with either warm tone beiges or cool tone grays. That's probably the most common and popular kind of color setup right now. So I've pulled from my contacts at Sherwin-Williams, and shout out to Tony, and some of my other fellows over at Benjamin Moore. What's up, Paul? So these are the top kind of, I pulled 3 of the top colors from each of like gray, beige, and then the whites. And then I will have all of these linked in the show notes with the color codes. So I'll go over Sherwin-Williams stuff first. So their whites are, like I said before, what we'd always recommend is just the untinted, which is 7006 extra white. And then we have Dover white, which has a little bit more of like a cream tone to it. And then Alabaster they're all, pretty close to each other on the YouTubes. And you guys probably can't even see that from here. But they're all really great whites. We've used them all quite a bit. And do you have anything to add on the whites, Josh?
They're whites.
It's pretty standard.
Yeah.
So nothing too exciting. So then they have the grays that I like from Sherwin-Williams are Agreeable Gray, Repose Gray, and Alpaca. They're all kind of on the lighter side of things. But I would take a look at those. A lot of times too, we tend to steer people towards the lighter end of the spectrum in terms of picking colors. Most people aren't too upset that they've gone too light. Generally, the larger the room, the more color it can handle. But if you have a small room, if you painted a dark color, it's going to make it seem smaller. If you're okay with that effect, that's totally fine. Some people like that. But I would say particularly when we work behind designers recently, they've been going with a lot more lighter colors, even in the larger spaces. So I will go to, those were the grays. And then these 3 are the warm tone beiges from Sherwin-Williams, which is Balanced Beige, Accessible Beige, and Tony Taupe. So I wonder if Tony picked that one because his name's Tony and has it in there. But anyway, these are all really good too. We've used these a gang of times before. And those are all Sherwin-Williams colors that I would recommend taking a look at in your respective projects. These all go with almost anything. Did you have any other Sherwin-Williams colors off the top of your head, Josh, that you wanted to mention in this scheme of things?
I mean, it's more just personal preference. If you really like something and you want to go dark or super light or white, it's all personal preference, but I like keeping it simple. So if we were just in a master suite where they kind of had a little bonus room on it and then they had a bathroom attached to it, and she was kind of debating whether to pick 3 different gray tones, and then we kind of said, hey, why don't you just all keep it the one gray tone, which she did, and then she was very, very pleased with it. So that worked out really well, just keeping it simple. And if you're trying to differentiate by one shade, one way or another, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference.
Yeah.
Especially from room to room. But and then it's less decisions you have to make.
Yeah. And that's something that we've, you can call it color coaching, but when I had that conversation with our recent client, she really liked the gray that she picked for the bathroom, and it was going to look great in the rest of the master suite as well. So I gently kind of pushed in that direction, and she was thrilled, because sometimes we know it's going to look better than what the ideas that they were throwing out, because then they start... If you don't go more than 3 shades apart from the shade that you picked originally, your eyes aren't going to pick up on the difference. So for those who have ever seen like a color wheel, that's like the big stack. I got one right over here, but it's you can get them from they're called like a fan deck or a color fan from Sherwin and Benjamin Moore, and it is a huge deck of just all their colors, and they're lined up usually from darkest to lightest. And then if you looked at the top shade, this was really common in our early kind of paint career where people were doing a lot more accent walls. And we would always say that if you don't go more than like 2 colors down from whatever color you picked for the rest of the room, that your eyes wouldn't pick up the difference. So, and I'd say accent walls are less common now. We've seen them a little bit. It's also, I felt like earlier on people were doing different colors in every single room.
Yes.
Where now I feel like, particularly with some of the houses that have more open concept, like we just did a big job kind of over the last year or so where they did one color and one trim color and one ceiling color through the entire house. It was extra white on the ceiling and the trim, and then it was china white on the walls.
They differentiated by their interior decorating of different tables and pictures and all kinds of accent pieces. But it was nice because it just flowed really nicely.
Yeah, that's a good word that you used, like the flow of things.
Yeah.
Which is a general thing that Josh and I will tell our clients is that if you look at your house, we'll say just a typical 2,000 square foot house that's got, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath, with, that very common 2-story foyer with a chandelier that's a huge pain in the butt to paint around.
Yes.
And like you've got the front staircase, probably a living room, dining room, then it feeds back into the main kitchen that's linked to the family room, which is usually a big common space. That's a fairly typical house that we paint in all the time. So the bedrooms, you can kind of go nuts because any room that you can close the door on, kids' rooms, all that stuff, master suite, you can go crazy because you can close those doors and your hallway's going to look really clean because you can't. We've seen so many, like Josh is like striping a bedroom this week.
Orange stripe with a red stripe inside the stripe.
And then the room's like this pretty intense blue.
Bright blue.
And then, I did a bathroom that was like turquoise. And so very, very extreme colors, but then that's totally fine. We still would kind of recommend going with the white trim and white ceilings. But I just painted over a black ceiling this week that had all the stars on it, and I'm sure that looked cool at one point. But that was a little bit of a pain in the butt getting that back to where it needs to be. But if you're looking at the common space, so like your upstairs foyer as it comes down into your dining room and then back into the grate area, it's nice. It creates a nice flow if you keep kind of the same color throughout. That's a really nice look. It's something I've liked more and more as we've done it a little bit more because it just ties everything together, and then you can break things up with like wall hangings and different accent pieces and furniture and things like that. So and that way it also makes the color selection process much easier for the homeowner because they only really have to pick one setup, be happy with it, and then you can kind of just go nuts everywhere. So then these are my some Benjamin Moore colors that I would recommend taking a look at. In the gray family, we have Balboa Mist, Stonington Gray. I just painted this in a master suite. That was that prime and first coat. It's really good. So I really like that color. It's a nice like middle of the road gray. And then Harbor Gray is another one. And then this is actually my number one recommendation is China White. That was 2015's color of the year. It's also called Sea Pearl, but it is a really, really useful color. I painted it in Serina's office. It's also in that big house that we where they had that throughout the entire house. It looks amazing. And would you call it a gray? It's kind of...
It's like a mix between beige and gray and white.
Yeah, it's a weird color, but man...
But it looks good with almost any furniture, and it's one of those colors that is not going to go out of style, at least for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's a safer one, so if you ever do sell your house, you don't have to repaint everything and pay thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and it's a nice... Even though it says white, it does have color to it, particularly when you put it up against just like an extra white. It really does look nice. But that's been one of my favorites, and every time I think we've sold a lot of clients on China White,
especially when they couldn't pick colors. We really try to we usually have a can of China White just in the truck or something like that. We'll put it on, and I think like we're 90% with that, where we've convinced people to do China White.
Yeah,
it's a very high percentage.
Yeah, very high. It's been a top performer. And then for Benjamin Moore, the warm tones, we just used all of these. Monterey White, I really like. Putnam Ivory, which is actually what's on the walls in here. And then Manchester Tan. Those are kind of my three favorites in that realm. For exterior, just this is random, but Bleaker Beige is really nice. Exterior, I've used a gang of that as well. And then the whites from Benjamin Moore is a little confusing because they also have one called Alabaster that's really popular. Then Ivory White and Linen White are some of their more common whites from Benjamin Moore. So those are some colors to check out. And then, I wanted to mention too that Sherwin-Williams and Benjamin Moore both have, I would say particularly Sherwin-Williams has done a lot for trying to help people through the color process. They have a thing called Color Snap and Color Preview. They've put a lot of money into trying to make it a smoother process. And I've been on their website recently, and you can create like a fake room and start picking color tones, and they'll show you things that match up well and what's in the color family, and it'll preview kind of a standard bedroom or whatever for you. Just realize too that when you are looking at it on your computer, that is not going to be completely accurate as far as the tone of the color. So you really are going to need to see it kind of for yourself in person in the room that you're going to be putting it on. So if you are a homeowner and let's just say like hypothetically you called Josh and I and we showed up, we did a quote, we want to move it along. Now we're at the point where you're picking colors. What I would recommend is find a few colors that you like and then, do with the standard white trim, white ceiling. You're like, okay, now I'm just picking the wall color. You want to get some samples from Sherwin-Williams or Benjamin Moore.
About $5 or so per sample.
Yeah, they're like $5 to $7. They're going to give you like a quart of paint. Now, this is not high quality paint. It's just to be representative of what the color will look like. And then what you want to do with a quart is a decent amount of paint. So I'd really recommend if you're going to go through this process and not have us do it, is to get like a roller and a pan set up with a roller frame. You might have one lying around your house, or just get like a mini roller. You can get one of the smaller ones.
Or a brush.
And then and make sure you open up the sample, use drop cloths if you need to protect anything you might get paint on, and then do a decent size swatch on your walls. And
at least a foot by foot or 2 feet by 2 feet if you can make one that big.
Yeah, I would recommend doing a larger amount, particularly once you've committed to actually doing the painting. And then if you're going to brush it, this has happened a bunch of times, but really try and like smooth it out. That's kind of why I steer people towards using a roller, because you're generally going to get, because most of the time we have to spackle over because they have really thick lines. But yeah, do a decent size swatch on your wall, and then if you can do it in different lights, because a lot of times the rooms are going to look different depending on where the light is, and you just want to get enough on the wall where you can actually get a good idea for what it's going to look like. Because when you look at a paint swatch, it's like 2 inches by 3 inches. That's not a really accurate representation of what that color is going to look like in different lights. So that's
and also Sherwin-Williams has big samples that you can order. I think it costs a couple of bucks, but you can get, I think it's might even be a 12-inch by 12-inch colored board that you can just hold up and look at. So you can order. We just have a client who just ordered those, and she's getting a couple of those in. But it just takes a little bit more time for them to get it and deliver it to you.
Yeah, they also have color. I don't know what they call
coaches,
it.
right?
Color coaches, and that's something I've been kind of impressed with Sherwin-Williams doing this. They will actually send a representative out to your house and have a color consult with you, and they work for Sherwin-Williams, and they've usually got some degree of training in home design or that kind of stuff. But they will walk you through that process and say, like, this would go well in here, and they might give you some more options than, I'm sure it would be dependent on which person you get, but they're very helpful. And then what they're going to do is give you like a coupon. They really want to make sure you're buying Sherwin-Williams products. And if you're using us to paint, then we will be anyway, so it's not a big deal. But I believe that's free.
It's free, or $100, I think, if you don't use their paint. It's really reasonable.
Yeah. So that's super reasonable and can be, that's what those people do all the time. And they want you to use Sherwin-Williams paint, which is not a problem because it's actually good stuff anyway. And then you can always go the interior designer route as well. That's just going to be way more pricey than doing that. And I will say, for any contractors that are listening to this, even homeowners as well, I've been experimenting with, it's called the Color Snap. And Josh and I didn't know about this. And then I think it came out within the last couple months, where they redid it, and it looks like a film capsule, an old like capsule for film, and you install an app on your phone, and then it allows you to scan any colors, and it gives you the closest color to Sherwin-Williams, like in their color catalog, and it's constantly updated, and it works decently well. Josh and I have used it to like match colors and stuff that we're having to do repaints for. You do want to take out an actual fan deck and like look at the top 3 colors and then kind of eyeball it, because it's not perfect. I've had kind of mixed results with it, but it is a super handy little tool to have, and can give your clients a little bit. It's only like $60, so I've been kind of impressed with the bang for the buck on that.
And if you're ever trying to match a color, you can, if you have any type of board or anything that's painted, or you can cut out a little piece of like the drywall, you can just take that to Sherwin-Williams, and they can match that color pretty much to the T. Get about 98% there. Yeah,
because they have like their color eye that they have is way better than the consumer version, because they can really, Josh and I have pulled off full doors and put it in our truck and had them scan it if we couldn't get a piece of trim off or whatever. You can also cut a swatch out of the wall.
Yeah, take a utility knife and cut a 1 or 2 inch square just from the actual drywall paper. You don't have to go too deep, and usually it'll peel out unless it's very, very old drywall, but we do that all the time. Homeowners will wonder why we cut a piece out of their drywall. We're not actually cutting through the whole rock. It's just like the paper on the top.
Yeah, the top layer.
And then you just spackle it and can paint it. But if you're ever trying to match something, and the old, people who owned the home before you didn't have the colors, that's a good way to get it.
Yep. So that is that's kind of our little spiel for picking colors.
And then I would just recommend, if you're painting and if you have contractors do it, or if you do it yourself, to label all your paints. And if you want to be really prepared, make a master sheet of ceilings are this color, walls are this color, trim is this color, and then do it in Sharpie. Because a lot of times what's going to happen over the years is there's going to be a leak in the bathroom. It's going to leak on the ceiling. Whoever painted threw away all the paint or didn't keep it, and then you have to figure out what it was before, and it just turns into more of a mess. But if you have some organization, and the best, we've had clients who, the real organized ones, they save themselves a lot of time, a lot of money, because they go, it's this color, here's the paint, and you have it, and it's very easy to match and to go forward, and just to paint one wall instead of trying to figure out what is this, and spend hours to do that, which you have to charge for. And that is something I always recommend. Just label everything and make a master sheet.
Yep. And then as far as like storing paint goes, try and store it. Basement's like a good spot. The garage is usually not a good spot because it's not insulated. So the paint if it gets cold enough, it will freeze, and then you won't be able to use it.
And if it gets too hot, like, above 100 for a long time, it's not good for the paint either.
Yeah, you pretty much just cook it. So, label it with Sharpies and put it in the basement. And then it's also super easy if you are, if you stick with just a few colors, then it's even simpler to store and then remember what went where and all of that jazz. And actually, Josh is an expert in disposing of paint. This is probably a good time to chat about that for a second too.
We have all these shelves of paint in my basement. I think I had 80 gallons to get rid of, and they're all in 1 gallon containers. So the best way to do it is to go buy probably like a 2.5 gallon bucket from Home Depot or Lowe's. They're usually $1 to $2. Get a bunch of them, and then you pour in. You want a 50-50 mix of paint and kitty litter. I found that is the most cost productive way to do it. Kitty litter is very cheap. Just get it from any big box store or grocery store. Do a 50-50 mix. Get a long stirrer like what you would use for a 5 gallon bucket. They're at Home Depot, Lowe's, Sherwin, Ben Moore. Stir it up, and then you want to let it sit outside for a day or two until it completely hardens. And then you can throw it away legally. I mean, you can technically just throw away paint, but that's frowned upon. Trash people don't like that.
Not a good move.
Yeah, not a good move. But you'd want to, and what I found was I got myself in trouble with. I'd have too much paint in the bucket and not enough kitty litter. But you want a 50-50 mix. Let it sit out for a few days, and then I would do it in do 5 gallons at a time, 6 gallons at a time. Throw it away, and you would get the big contractor bags at Home Depot or Lowe's that are real thick, and you could put about 4 gallons in one bag, like total, because it's so heavy. It's going to break most trash bags, and you might have to double bag it. But if you get a contractor bag, which is a bit thicker, but I mean, you can pretty much figure out when you put 3 or 4 gallons in a bag, and then it just rips and falls on the ground. Yeah. So I threw away 80 gallons of paint probably in over like a 2-month span, where every week I would probably do 5 to 10 gallons.
Yeah. So it can be a slow process.
Yes.
But we accumulate probably more paint than the average.
Yeah, if you're talking
person.
5 gallons or even 10 gallons, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
It just takes a little time.
So, but we've been in plenty of homes too where they've accumulated, especially older homes have accumulated paint, because a lot of times people
from like the last 5 paint jobs,
or people move and they leave all the extra paint in the basement, and
Yeah.
when people move in, they're like, "Oh, great, the paint's here," but then they never touch it. So it's that can kind of sneak up on people too. But if you open an old can of paint and it's dried all the way through, you can just huck it. You don't need to go through the kitty litter.
you just need to dry it out. That's
Yeah.
all the garbage people really want, just not to have, I guess, paint, because it's supposed to last forever apparently if it's wet paint.
Yep.
And then it doesn't, I guess, disintegrate in the landfill, how it's supposed to.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially a lot of the exterior paint's like guaranteed for life, which is kind of unrealistic, but it will last a super long time, particularly if it's wet. So, sweet. Well, I think we kind of nailed it. So I guess I'll just recap with, take a breath. Color's doesn't need to be stressful. Take your time. And if you can, start working on it well before the contractors are set to start with whatever paint contractor you're working with. It's kind of a good thing to get out of the way earlier on. One of the things I've noticed recently, and this may or may not go out of style, but a lot of the new bathrooms I've been doing, there's a particular type of gray cabinetry that they're putting in that is like the middle of the road gray. And a lot of the popular grays that are going on right now are very close to that cabinet color. This happened in like literally the last 6 bathrooms I've done. Because I think it's because the contractor likes using that particular type of cabinetry. But the wall color, if they go with a gray, because they usually want to go with a gray if they've picked this type of cabinetry, it's going to wash out that cabinet. And it just blends it in too much. So you've got to go like way darker, which is usually too dark for the bathroom, or like way lighter. So I've been steering them more towards a really light end of the gray spectrum to make sure that the cabinetry doesn't get lost in the wall. So that's just something I've seen recently. It's a lot of the solid color cabinets are more popular, either white cabinets or gray cabinets. So when you're picking a wall color, you want to make sure that it's not going to, you want it like at least 3 shades different from whatever your cabinet are. if you're using like a wood toned cabinet, which is more popular, then it really doesn't matter because you're not going to have wood toned walls. So, but that was just something I noticed recently. Anything else to add, brother?
No, I think we nailed it.
Cool. So, yeah, do your samples. Just go with white on trim and ceilings most of the time, flat on the ceiling, matte on the walls, semi-gloss on the trim, and, usually go with the lighter color. If you're between a darker color and a lighter color, in general, go towards the lighter one. But all that being said, if you like crazy colors, we are happy to do it any way you want it, and as long as you like it, we like it. So that's what's up. All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. Well, thanks for tuning in to the podcast, folks. Hopefully that was useful and informative. It's kind of a process we've walked hundreds of clients through. I will have all of the paint colors and color codes listed in the show notes, which are available on any podcasting platform that you're listening on, as well as on YouTube. And they'll also be listed on our website, which is thepainterandthepixie.com. But yeah, if you guys thought that was useful, please pass that around to any of your friends that might be going through that process to save them a little bit of strife and aggravation during the color picking process. I know it can be a big pain in the butt, and if I can assuage any of that suffering, happy to do so. So that is it for us this week. I hope you guys have a good one. Stay out of trouble, and I will see you in the next one.
Amazing.